Hello, it is Cattail once again. We're back with another Cattail Talks episode. And in all honesty, I want to make this like a weekly series. So hey, here we are. And now that it is a weekly series, I actually have to remember what the heck I was talking about. But luckily it was easy. I'm even playing it right now. PvZ2. I'm playing Reflourished, which is a mod for it, but same deal, you know. You get it. But last time we went over a bit how PvZ2 is fundamentally broken. And, well, I'm playing Reflourished because I kind of want to segue into this a little bit. And the winter melon problem. And it is called the winter melon problem because winter melon is the biggest culprit for it. Because, well, plant balancing in PvZ2 has to do with power creep, right? We went over this last time. Basically, as worlds got harder, plants got better, and then they got broken. And then it got to the point where, well, nobody could do anything because everything was just busted. So plants like Kernel Pult can exist alongside whatever the other thing was I was talking about last time. Something like Cold Snap, I guess, is an example we'll use. But honestly, it's like it started with Wintermelon, right? Wintermelon was that plant. Not in PvZ1. PvZ1, it had the whole upgrade system, which kind of just threw Wintermelon into the garbage. But, well, it was still A tier, but it wasn't the best of the best. But in this game, Wintermelon has no such restriction, and thus is the best of the best. And it's not really close either. So, well, at least in terms of free updates, Wintermelon was completely busted. And that had to do with the whole sun change. That's a different problem, but it kind of highlights how insane Wintermelon is that it costs, in terms of PvZ1, an effective 250 sun. Which is cheaper than Melon Pult cost in that game, by the way. But if you're going by PvZ2 standards, it costs 500, which, yeah, that's expensive, but it's just does so much. And as such, it basically acted as the be-all end-all. Why would you not want to just use Wintermelon? It has a fast recharge. Sun is not a huge issue in this game if you know how to play it. And, well, levels became a lot faster because of Wintermelon. It all cycles back to Wintermelon, specifically. The reason I know this, the reason I know that it's specifically Wintermelon and not any other plant, is because in the original version of PvZ2, it was specifically Wintermelon that they tried to counter with Far Future. That was through the addition of Shield Zombie, and then having Discotron kind of just spam Disco Jetpacks that were fast. But Far Future also kind of power crept itself instantly, so that was kind of a bummer on their end. But, well, it tried to counter Wintermelon. And then Jester comes around to counter Wintermelon. Surfer specifically counters Wintermelon. Lost City, you have Parasol to counter Wintermelon. Neon Mixtape Tour kind of has glitter. Kind of. Neon Mixtape Tour is just a mess anyway. By that point, Wintermelon wasn't a problem anymore. But it still persisted. The problem started because of Wintermelon. It was so good, and it still is ridiculously busted to this day. Because it's just the gold standard for a broken plant. But Wintermelon caused a lot of problems because it wasn't properly balanced. The 50 sun meta completely skewed everything into the favor of the plants, and as such, levels had to become rushier in order to attempt to counteract this new meta. And then that didn't work. They tried at first creating Big Wave Beach to counter the meta, but all that did was scare away new players, while also the experienced players didn't really have a huge problem with it. At least once they figured out that magnifying grass was the most broken plant under the sun, and also that you plant your attackers behind your sun production. And then after that, everything became trying to counter the meta for plants. But they also had to make the game accessible to casuals. So you also have to make it so that like the game is difficult for veterans, but also welcoming to casuals. You can't do that. PvZ2 had a huge identity crisis with Frostbite Caves all the way to, well, Arena. Once Arena came around, the game completely shifted focus, forgot adventure ever existed, and just became solely about Arena. But we're not talking about that, because I don't play Arena, I don't like Arena, and I will never touch it again, probably. But the whole point that I'm getting at is that everything became about trying to make it so that everybody could play the game, to make everyone happy. But instead of just letting the top tier players use their top tier stuff, and then letting the casuals, kind of go around and experiment and have difficulty, or just spam power-ups, like I did the first time I played Big Wave Beach. But, well, it was all about making money. So they started monetizing better plants. And then, when that came around, they had to make those plants busted, and then those plants became busted, but then the other plants became not good enough in order to keep up with the normal levels, so then they ended up having to add more busted free plants anyway, and here we are. So it all cycles back to Winter Melon, because Winter Melon was the first of these busted plants. Now, originally Winter Melon wasn't busted back when the game was 25 sun meta. But then the 50 sun meta forced everything to become faster. It sped up zombie speeds, seed packet recharge times. Everything became implicitly faster. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. The faster recharge times on packets and the faster zombie speeds is not a bad thing in theory, and typically in practice as well. It's just that the way they executed it and the way this game is fundamentally built just does not work. That's why a lot of mods that, try to actually have the game oriented towards like a higher skill ceiling change the sun meta to 25, because the skill ceiling for a 50 sun meta is just so much lower. Since you can just spam basically, and then you can win. All you need to do is like stall for a few zombies, and then you have full Winter Melons before the first flag, and it's all over. So basically, that's why everything kind of just went down the drain, and why I would consider base PvZ2, it was mediocre before Power Plants. Power Plants made it straight up a bad game, but before Power Plants, I'd say it was mediocre. A lot of people would say that it's either bad or good. I think it was just mediocre, because in service of a sequel to the original, the game succeeded and failed on so many accounts that you basically have to create a chart to map out what the game was good at and what the game wasn't. Because, like, in terms of expanding how you play the game, and different plants and zombies and different environments to use things in, the game succeeded on all accounts. But in terms of expanding upon the gameplay in a way that was fun and a way that made sense, it kind of fell short. Like, power-ups just didn't need to be a thing, and neither did, well, I like plant food, so I'll give that one a pass, but neither did things like the shovel upgrade. It all just kind of snowballed in on itself. So where are we now? Where are we now with both the current state of PvZ2 and, in my opinion, just the greater scheme of how I feel about this game? Well, Arena has not helped. I actually stopped playing the game when after Power Plants. I just straight up stopped playing. I think part of that was just the grindiness of it, but I also think another part was just the lack of new content really just made the game feel... You kind of realize, right, how unreplayable the game is. In PvZ1, they focus a lot on replayability, but that is not the case for PvZ2. You're not really expected to replay things. Levels are designed to be like a one-time challenge. They're more puzzle-ish, I guess. Or they're like, yeah, I'd just say they're puzzle-ish. Like, in objectives, you have to figure out how to get around it. It's not necessarily about your strategy. It's about, do you have the counter? It's more lock and key than the original, which is ironic because the original is Balloon Zombie. But Balloon Zombie is secretly one of the best zombies in that game. So, whatever, I guess. Really, though, I think probably the main problem that PvZ2 faced, even when it was getting consistent updates, its main problem was that it built itself on a lie. It built itself on being the big, successful sequel to the original, implementing all the cool stuff that it did, and then expanding on it in every way that they could. And then that, while that might have been true to start, it quickly became a lie. And I think that became apparent as soon as Dark Ages. And the game could never recover from this lie because it was built on it fundamentally. The whole point of PvZ2 was originally just to be Planter Zombies monetized. You can argue with me if you want, but that's what it is. That's what it was always meant to be. And since PvZ2 PvZ monetized kind of shot itself in the foot by fundamentally changing the game, they had to fundamentally change it even more to the point where gameplay from PvZ2 is completely unrecognizable from PvZ1 at times, which is insane to think about, considering this is a direct sequel we're talking about. But, well, here we are. You see the screen right now. So, let's go over two things. How would I have fixed it then, and how would I fix it now? So, how I would have fixed it then really just has to go back to the whole world map thing they had. I think, in theory, a world map is a good idea. But I think in practice, the reason the original PvZ was so replayable is that you could replay all adventure levels in order whenever you wanted from the main menu from the click of a single button. If they had both the world map as a level select, but also this replayability option, the game would have been much better off. I also think this would have made stars a lot less grindy, and I think stars were a good thing. Maybe unlocking worlds with them wasn't the best decision. Maybe it should have just been relegated to plants, but yeah, here we are. Oh, they made their bed, now they have to lie in it. So, basically, stars, but, in a not grindy way, because of replayability. And the keys and gates was a decent idea. It's just getting keys was so annoying that it kind of fell apart. PvZ2 basically needs to build itself kind of like PvZ2 China, except without the bad level design and the dumb gimmick plants and zombies. Like, PvZ2 China actually has some great stuff in it. I would actually consider it superior to the international version, but it still has a leveling system. It still has all this garbage that you just don't want to deal with, but you deal with anyway, because you want to get a PvZ experience. That's where you get it. Now, does this necessarily mean that, we need to keep everything from the original? No. I do like the 10 level structure, but I do I do see the problem with implementing something like a Zomboss fight or a Gargantuar battle into a system like that. Perhaps you could make it kind of like, I guess Ecclesis is an example. Not the level design, but, you know, how the levels are structured. You have 10, like, regular levels. You go through all the worlds, and then you come back and do more. The only problem with that is that you'd have to cycle through the worlds, like, maybe 5 at a time, and then do the B side for each one. Just so that way when you add new worlds, you don't have to cycle through every single world. I don't know. Adding new content kind of just makes it difficult to kind of plan replayability. Because the whole point of the adventure menu from the first one was basically every single level, we don't have like a map or anything, but every level's already here. So there's no reason to, you know, not have you just go through them in a cycle. Which I think kind of hurts PvZ2 a little bit, but I would like them to have some sort of version of that, even if it isn't perfect. Because replayability is a large name in this game. And without that name, you're suffering quite a bit. Whether, you know, you want to or not. So, they should have kept the star system. Well, it's not what I would have gone with first. It helps with replayability a lot. Maybe just make it so that the star challenges happen on replay versions of it, and then you can get stars from it. But stars aren't required to unlock the next world. You just play levels in order for that to happen. Because that way, you could still get stars by replaying levels, but it wouldn't be a grind. Now, I have no idea what the heck you do with, like, gates or anything, but well, whatever. They could have figured that out. They could have figured it out. They didn't have to make it linear like they did. They didn't have to do that. And it hurt them so much, I think, in terms of being able to creatively design things. Just simply because they had to throw in all the star challenge objectives into the regular levels. So that meant they had to balance the difficulty around everything being locked at once, instead of having the star objectives be a separate, harder version of the regular levels to appeal to both casual and the try-hard audience. I say try-hard, but that's kind of what I am. So, yeah. That's, in total, my solution. Now, where we are now is a whole different ballgame. A lot of people want new worlds, but I think they misunderstand what they really want. This is something you get with, like, franchises a lot, is that the fans think they know what they want, but they really don't. See, getting new worlds doesn't matter if the worlds are built in the same way that the regular adventure levels are. So, the only way I could see this working is if they completely revamp how adventure works to, you know, prevent plant leveling, but then give, you know, the players the incentive to play these adventure levels by giving large seed packet rewards for Arena or Penny's Pursuit. Basically, you need to make it so that you need to play or replay adventure levels in order for things to, you know, be easier for you in other modes. It puts value on adventure again, which right now you only do to get the plants and then you just walk away. If you had this kind of system, like, the Pinata Tracker was a good idea. It's just replaying the levels in PvZ2 is miserable, so there's no reason to do that. So, that's just what they should have done. Maybe they could have refined it a little bit. I don't know. They had a system, and they didn't think it worked, even though I think it could have. So that's on them, I think, for ditching an idea. Like, they even monetized the Pinata Tracker. That's how confident they were in that. But now adventure just doesn't exist in the PvZ2 these days. It's just not there. And I can't blame them for ignoring it, honestly, because it's a complete mess. The levels are unbalanced and rushy for half of them, and the other half are way too easy. You just need to make it so the challenges are separate from the base levels. You have to do that. Otherwise, you're going to trap yourself. And if you trap yourself with this kind of thing, then you're just not going to get anything done. It's going to be awful because all you're going to be doing is trying to fix a system that can't be fixed. The challenge levels just, well, they're challenges. It's in the name. For some reason, they thought it was a good idea to just incorporate random ones into the main levels because they didn't want to ditch them, which I think was a good idea to not ditch them. It's just, once again, how they implemented it was wrong. And challenges, coupled with the winter melon problem, led to such immense power creep that we are where we are now. It didn't have to be like this either. It's just, it is because that's how it is, I guess. You just have to deal with it like that, I suppose. I don't know, man. But I would definitely make it so that Arena and Penny's Pursuit and plant leveling are separate from adventure. It is paramount that that is the case, because if it is not, then you cannot balance adventure. It is impossible. There's nothing you can do. Adventure will always be an unbalanced mess. Either it'll be too easy, like it is now with leveling, or it will be too insanely rushy, like it was before leveling. Well, it's still rushy now, but it doesn't matter because plant leveling. So, you have to separate them. You use adventure to get you used to the plants and the zombies, and then you expand upon it in Penny's Pursuit with challenge levels for stars. Maybe you can use stars to buy pinatas, and then you can get stars like in addition to the regular way of like beating levels. You can get stars from, like, I don't know, pinata parties. Maybe when you do a pinata party you can get a star. Maybe when you, like, I'm trying to think of other things you could do. I mean, you could have, like, epic quests give stars. And epic quests could, you know, use the non-leveling system. You could use stars to buy mints, maybe. But if you want to tie mints to Arena, then you can do that too. Either way, you need to do something to separate the adventure from Arena, and you need to give players a reason to go back and replay adventure levels tied to Arena. So that way it's optional on whether or not you want to do it in the first place, but also for the players that, you know, want to get ahead in Arena, they have to do adventure, which they have to do anyway, so you can't argue like, oh, I don't want to play this one mode so I can get better at this other mode. That's how it is now. You're just getting more for it this way. So, there. Now that's out of the way. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about some other smaller fixes they could do if they don't want to completely revamp adventure. They could go back and update old levels. They've done it before, but they did it to make them worse for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know why they removed Mummy Memory either. I guess because it was broken. But that sounds like a personal problem, honestly. You had the resources to make it the first time. You can make it a second time. And then just, like, do that, I guess. Just remake adventure levels, but better. There's no reason that you can't do that. You can do that. You can introduce daily... They have daily quests for replaying adventure levels, but I think for replaying specific worlds might be a good idea. I don't know. You need some reason to go back. I don't think the quest rewards are quite good enough, in all honesty, in order to warrant that. warrant that whole return, but who knows? Maybe like 5,000 coins is good enough for some people. It's good enough for somebody. I don't know. They can come up with whatever reward they want. They could reward like a lot of pinata packets for that world or something, which might actually be useful. And would also encourage to use plants from those worlds to diversify your plant usage. Maybe, you have to replay. I mean, like, the future Fracas thing, or whatever, where they took the levels that were supposed to be, like, the day 30 levels and moved them. The levels sucked, but it's a good idea. I think, just fundamentally, though, they need to separate leveling from adventure. If they do that one thing, then adventure it's not saved, but it is savable. You can redeem it. It's not going to be pretty, but you can redeem it. Until that happens, though, what we're stuck with in PvZ2 right now is so disappointing, especially considering where we started out. And it's kind of heartbreaking, honestly. This used to be my favorite franchise. It's still number 2. And seeing how much pain this franchise has been in for so long, starting with PvZ2, it hurts a lot. There's just so much that could have been done. The woulda, coulda, shoulda. And it's where we are now, I think, that hurts the most. PvZ3 is an absolute dumpster fire right now. And PvZ2 is not in a good state. BFN just completely failed. Who knows when we're getting another game. Heroes is dead in the water for some reason. It's just, whatever happens next happens, I guess. The future of PvZ is kind of bleak, and there's not really one person or company to blame for it. I think it's just the fault of everyone involved. It's kind of like a bad breakup, I guess. Where something that was just once so great, something that you loved more than anything, now just kind of hurts. Luckily, fan projects are keeping us in a good state. And I think as long as the fans are interested, there will always be something PvZ around the corner. But until PopCap can get its act together, until EA gives them, well, whatever EA gives people, until the balance between monetization and fun gameplay can be restored, I don't think there's a lot of hope. But who knows? Who knows? I've been wrong about this stuff before. I think that's it, though, for this episode at least. And I'll see you next time. Cattail signing off.